perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Hello, welcome back. I hope you're doing good today. A while back, on a Paralives dev chat, I gave everyone a challenge. If we got 500 likes on that video, I would make a video based on whatever the most liked comment was. Well, we did it. We got over 500 likes. KLD's comment was the most liked one, and they had a fantastic idea. What would the perfect life simulation game look like? Since there are many players who love life simulation games for various reasons, how would this game stay perfectly balanced? Well, KLD, this was an exciting and challenging idea. Hopefully, I won't let you down with this. Disclaimer, I am not a game developer. And sadly, this perfect life simulation game will probably never exist. It would be way too expensive to actually create, and the process would take many years. That doesn't mean we can't fantasize about it. Now, let's get to the good. The game's overall vibe should be focused on a fun time, and should be player-focused with tons of customization options throughout. It should feel casual and relaxed, but exciting and quirky. The game should allow players to cultivate their own storyline, but with a bit of randomness thrown at us. I like it when something shakes up the gameplay for you, if you choose to let it. This is how some quirkiness could be incorporated. The towns would feel lively, full of unique people who are going about their days trying to accomplish whatever they're working towards. The NPCs would feel like complete people with their own thing going on. They have their own relationships, families, skills, careers, wants, desires, memories, and even daily routines. For example, you'd see NPCs at certain locations at similar times throughout the day or week, similar to Stardew Valley. Now for the art style. I'm pretty easygoing with this aspect. Only if it doesn't look like The Sims 3 and doesn't give off Uncanny Valley vibes. Personally, this would be the hardest decision for me. There are tons of beautiful art styles to choose from. What type of art style would you want for the perfect game? Oh, you know what? Actually, I would want it to feature items that look realistic, done in whatever art style we've decided for the game. I like it when things look familiar to me. This is something that The Sims 4 doesn't really get right. Many of their items are just stylized. They don't look like they could be from real life. Well, I guess some of them do, but most of them don't. This game would be targeted towards young adults and maybe teenagers. It would have very few DLC. The DLC would include new items, elements, and features for every single aspect of the game. Essentially, it would be game-changing DLC. None of this $6 for 5 pieces of clothing BS. Even then, I kind of envisioned a life simulation game that works sort of like how Valheim, Eco, or Minecraft works. You buy the base game once, and then you have access to all of these awesome updates throughout the years. Minecraft is a best-selling video game despite it being released in 2010-2011, and Mojang is still a billion-dollar company. So they must be doing something right. Another great thing about Minecraft is that you have access to previous versions of the game. I don't know why I enjoy that so much, but it's pretty neat. Quality of life updates would always be free. Okay. Maybe that wouldn't be realistic. Well, if that's the case, then, like I said, quality of life updates would always be free. On the other hand, DLC would only be expansion packs. No stuff packs, no game packs, no kits. Nothing like that. Expansion packs would be rich in detail and gameplay. It would follow a theme without aspects or elements split up between several packs. All aspects of the DLC's theme would be thoroughly explored in a single pack. We'd ensure that there weren't any bugs, and if there were bugs, they'd be dealt with immediately. What's the point of playtesters if we don't actually fix anything that they point out? Am I right? That means there'd be fewer bugs that players would encounter. DLC and updates would be gone over with a fine-tooth comb so that they wouldn't cause any issues. Maybe we'd even have a dedicated team for fixing issues and playtesting. Mods in CC would be completely supported. Players are welcome to create content for the game, and it's encouraged. The mod system would be built into the game and would be very user-friendly. I would want anyone to be able to access it and utilize it. Of course, there'd be a fantastic soundtrack, one that fits in with the mood and is catchy. Like a catchy virus, haha! Nice music is always a good thing for video games. In my opinion, there are 3 focal points for a good life simulation game. Each of them should be maintained and expanded upon to create the perfect game. These 3 categories would be the character creator, the build mode, and the live mode. Who would have guessed? These 3 core elements make the foundation for the game. They can make it or break it. They need to be balanced since many players tend to play with only one section of the game. However, if you were to choose out of the 3, then build mode and live mode would be a tad bit, very slightly more important than character creator, and then live mode would be, you know, a little bit more important than build mode. With that being said, let's start off with the character creator. This is a life simulation game that mimics our real life. That means I want to see diversity. I want all players to represent themselves in the game if they want to. I want to see all walks of life. Therefore, there'd have to be a color wheel for clothing, eyes, hair, and accessories. A combination of a skin tone slider, presets, and a color wheel for skin tones. There'd have to be a height slider and muscle and fat sliders. In addition, there must be a way to shape how your character would look. It could be through a push and pull system or an advanced slider system. Next, freckles, beauty spots, moles, and tattoos would need a tool where you have complete control over where they're located and how they look. Similar to the one featured in Paralives, that tool is a thing of beauty. Moving on to the clothes. Pretty much the same thing as before, I want players to be able to create custom characters. This means custom patterns for clothing and accessories, as well as a color wheel. One thing I want is the ability to tuck in any shirt into any pants, shorts, skirts, anything really. Being able to layer clothings would be a must for sure. I would want simple things like voice customization, lots of clothing and hair options, the ability to flip clothing designs, and things like that. The character creator would include the ability to add non-playable relatives to a family tree, sort of like the relatives that wouldn't be a part of the game at all. Completely non-playable, not even a townie or an NPC, just non-existent. You'd be able to include large families that can be broken up into several households. There'd be a family tree you can look at, and you have numerous relationship options like the ability to add half-siblings, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, and crushes or enemies. Yes, one-sided relationships would be included. Genetics would be included, so you can see family traits be passed down, and clothing and accessories would be equipable. That means you pick out shoes, mittens, toques, backpacks, purses, sunglasses, and scarves that the character would automatically equip in-game, depending on the situation, or the player could equip them for the character. Build mode would be much of the same. Plenty of customization for players, like resizable furniture, color wheels, the ability to change textures on certain elements, the ability to switch elements out for other options, custom images, patterns, and textures for various build items, and advanced terrain tools. I'm not going to go into all of the details for this because it would essentially be a mixture of the number of items in Sims 4, but would work like Paralives. Except this would be the perfect game. It would be better. Tons of options, tons of ways to customize it. Just the builder's dream come true. There would be stats tied to items that would affect gameplay, but it wouldn't be tied to the appearance. You would have the choice to enable or disable the ability for items to age and break down. Objects can be passed down through the generations, and their stats would increase throughout time if it's properly cared for. You get it. Build mode would be incredible. Let's move on. First and foremost, an open world would be a must, or at least open neighborhoods. This is an element that makes the experience of playing so magical. I don't want the gameplay to be broken up with loading screens. I think there'd be an option to play online with friends, as well as an offline single-player mode. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not a game developer, so I'm not sure how realistic this would be. Nonetheless, I do think the perfect game would include an offline single-player mode and an online multiplayer mode. Not sure how it would work though. Basic things like seasons, weather, a calendar, pets, aka dogs, cats, horses, birds, and small rodents, and fish, and emotions, but without the smiling all the time if they're happy or frowning all the time if they're mad, would be included. I think emotions shouldn't mean that the character acts in a certain way the whole time they're feeling it. If they're happy, maybe they'd smile every once in a while, but they wouldn't look silly by smiling the whole time. They would actually have a resting face. Because you know, people have resting faces in real life, and I want to see that in my game. I don't want to see that silly grin all the frickin' time. In the perfect life simulation game, there'd be active careers and active schooling. You'd be able to choose if you go with that character to their job or school day. At those locations, you'd follow a schedule with certain tasks to complete which affect their job performance or grade. It'd be very similar to Sims 4 Get to Work and Discover University, but it would be better because I say so. And this is supposed to be the perfect game. I want randomly generated events and possibilities that change the course of your gameplay, if you let it. I want events, game-generated ones, and player-made ones. There should be unique interactions for certain characters or between certain relationships. There'd be things to shake up the boring day-to-day aspects of the game. On the other hand, there'd be a routine creator which would allow players to create routines for particular characters at particular times of the day or week. This would allow for those boring daily tasks to be completed without the boring task of choosing every boring thing to do. It would streamline that very boring process. Players' choices would impact the game, and there'd be long-term and short-term goals that have real consequences that are felt within the game. I think it would be important for the player to outline their character's short-term and long-term goals so that they can work on accomplishing those goals. The aspirations and whims of Sims 4 are a little too basic for me. Maybe there'd be pre-made goals and there'd be a way to create custom goals, sort of like player-made challenges that can actually be incorporated into the game. That way, the game can reward the players for their efforts, and the rules would be outlined in-game. I feel like you'd need to have the option to create multiple goals for each character. People in real life have multiple goals, so it would only make sense to include that as well. You know, we're not all just single-minded with one goal for a time period. We have multiple goals. We have layers. Like an onion. For example, life, financial, career, and relationship goals, as well as those short-term whims and desires. Like, I want to eat cake today, and I want it to be chocolate cake. Their personalities would be incorporated throughout the game by giving them more or fewer options for particular interactions, events, and items. I want it to feel like their personalities actually matter and impact the gameplay. That's all I want. I think you see what I'm saying here. Player-made choices, no matter how big or small they are, actually matter and change the course of the gameplay. It would be similar to those Telltale games where your choices are remembered and they change the course of the story, except it would be in a life simulation game. You'd be able to review your choices and the character's story through elements like a memory system, game-generated journals that transcribe important events, relationships, career progression, and other things like that. Long story short, players have options that impact gameplay, and the game throws you curveballs that you can choose to interact with or not, while working through long-term and short-term goals or challenges, so that you can tell a story throughout your time in the game. Whew! Can anyone say run-on sentence much? That was a huge one. And I apologize for that. So, did you like my perfect life simulation game? Would you buy it? Because I think I would, but I'm biased. Thank you to everyone who gave me suggestions for this video on my community post, and a huge shout out to KLD for the idea. Thank you. I'm wishing you all good vibes and love. Stay well. Until next time, bye!